2002, Noam Chomsky famously claimed that there was a single, universal property that underpins all human languages: recursion. A few short years later, in 2005, Daniel Everett claimed that Piraha, the small indigenous language from the Amazon that he had been working on for over 30 years, didn't have recursion. A fierce debate ensued. If you've ever read articles popularizing this debate before, it's usually how the narrative goes. Chomsky claimed all languages have recursion, Everett found a language that doesn't have it, and all hell broke loose. There's just one small problem. That version of events isn't true. It just isn't. What is true is that Everett argued that Piraha doesn't have recursion. What he meant by recursion is when you take one linguistic structure and embed it in another linguistic structure of the same kind. Kinda like Matryoshka dolls. We could also call this self-embedding. For example, if I say, the swan that I'm looking at is poorly drawn, I have one clause, the swan is poorly drawn, and embedded inside of that, I have another clause, that I'm looking at. A clause within a clause. Recursion. Or I could stack possessives. Bob's pet swan. Bob's uncle's pet swan. Bob's uncle's cat's pet swan. A possessive inside a possessive inside a possessive. Recursion. According to Everett, in Piraha you can embed stuff like that. You can't say, the swan that I'm looking at is poorly drawn. Instead you'd have to say something like, I'm looking at a swan, it's poorly drawn. You can't say Bob's uncle's pet swan. Rather, you'd have to say something like, Bob has an uncle, he has a pet swan. But here's the thing. When Chomsky claimed that recursion was a universal property of the language faculty, what he meant by recursion was something else entirely. Instead of self-embedding, what he meant by it was what we could call self-reference. At its core, Chomsky's theory of language, in all of its iterations, is algorithmic. It's about finding a small, finite set of instructions that allows us to produce a potentially infinite amount of different sentences. In his view, language is a set of sentences, and the grammar of that language is the algorithm that produces all the sentences in that set, and only those. All the sentences that are in that set are grammatical, and those that aren't are ungrammatical. If you're looking for an algorithm like that, it's going to be self-referential, in the sense that the key variables will be defined in terms of themselves. It's a bit like the 101 definition of natural numbers. My instructions, or my algorithm as it were, could be just two simple lines. 0 is a natural number. If n is a natural number, then n plus 1 is also a natural number. With just those two lines, I can start a process that will allow me to generate all of the natural numbers. 0 is a natural number, so 0 plus 1 is also a natural number. Then I can take that result and plug it back in on the other side of the equation. 1 is a natural number, so 1 plus 1, 2 is also a natural. 2 is a natural number, so 2 plus 1, 3 is also a natural number. And so on, ad infinitum. That's what Chomsky means by recursion. The latest iteration of Chomsky's theory centers around an operation called merge. What merge does is that it takes two items and merges them inside a larger set. And you can then take that larger set and merge it with other things. That way you can build sentences from the ground up in a process that is very similar to what we did with natural numbers. Just like our algorithm for natural numbers would never produce numbers like 3.7 or 4.6, our algorithm for language would never produce sentences that are ungrammatical. This is what Chomsky had in mind when he said recursion is a universal property of the language faculty. On the face of it, it has nothing to do with the Matryoshka dolls that we get with clauses inside clauses and whatnot. So is that all it was? The biggest controversy in modern linguistics was just a misunderstanding over the meaning of recursion? Well, no. It certainly didn't help that people were using the word recursion to mean different things, but that's not all there was to it. Self-embedding and self-reference aren't entirely unrelated. There are some more indirect ways to connect the two things, and most of them carry over into the realm of philosophy, with questions about falsification and questions about the justification for choosing one theory over another. And Everett did argue that Piraha was a challenge to Chomsky's theory. There was a real debate there that wasn't just about semantics. If you want to really nerd out on the topic, I'll leave a link to a much longer video where I go through that debate. what the arguments were, and what was at stake. But for this short video, the point is just this. The common narrative that goes something like Chomsky said all languages have recursion, Everett found a language that didn't have recursion, and everyone argued over whether this falsified Chomsky's theory or not. Yeah, that version of events, it never happened. Nobody, not even Everett, was arguing that. It's just a collective piece of fiction that emerged when the chain of transmission from scientists to the general audience malfunctioned.